I am in awe that I am sharing the stage, one, with Dr. Barry Zuckerman, who I am just now in Ontario trying to get our Minister of Health to bring Reach Out and Read into every family practice. I'm here with frickin' Michael Meaney. Like Michael Meaney, I use his work all the time. I steal his work all of the time. And he's going to hopefully talk about rats and licking. And I use that. It gives us hope that parenting matters. But I also use him to say that if you're working with somebody who's a real pain in the butt, just think they didn't get licked very much. And now, Eric, as you're talking, my husband and I are going to rendezvous at the airport tonight. But I'm the one who always organizes it. So he's terrified. He's getting on the plane in Toronto at 5 o'clock. So now I also need family therapy, given what you've said. Well, I'm going to talk to you, though, that the solution to all of this is that connection is the key. We are all here with our different influences. Our brains have been evolved and developed through our experiences. Now, some of us who are physicians, we are in this world. My friend Sue Bennett is leaping off into a new whole world. Now, we could have decided to do something with lasers, as in make lots of bucks. You guys who are in the social work field, you could have decided to work with the healthy unhappy. But I'm going to suggest that we are all here together because in our heart of hearts, in the silence of our quiet times, we have a strong, strong desire to make connections with our most vulnerable, to wholeheartedly bring the authenticity that we've heard that Dr. Julien embodies. So that wholeheartedness is what I really want to talk about. That connection is absolutely key in the work that we do. The families that you work with have problem-saturated lives. And it's very easy, as we've heard so well, it's very easy to get caught up in what they need to do. But I'm going to suggest to you that we need to have as our priority that relationships are what matter. That relationships really are the connection. Relationships are key. Very basic brain biology. I am a knowledge translator, so that's what you need to know. I steal all the wonderful research that people do, as we'll hear from. What builds the brain is the nutrition of the brain is relationship. It's the connection. It's the back and forth of everyday interaction. You see some gorgeous moments here. It doesn't stop in the early years, even though I am an early years advocate. And when we're talking, and we've heard already about the importance of working with our parents, I feel like I've come home. You know, I'm a child psychiatrist, so you all now love Scottish child psychiatrists from Hamilton, right? Okay. But, you know, in my world, I find that I'm more and more isolated because my role as I'm dealing and working and living with families' challenges is to really understand their dilemma. But I'm in a profession that more and more people are going to the find it, fix it mode. You know, let's diagnose this and let's put on the drugs. And so it takes time to do the work that you are doing and I'm doing, and at the heart of it is the relationship and the quality of the me, the quality of who I am that I bring to that interaction. That when we are working with families, as we've heard, you see these wonderful moments. I've often worried that families do not get the message that the relationships, the relational health of their children is more important for their school success than whether they can do the number tests and the literacy tests. That we've kind of pushed relational health further down the line. But relationships matter. The brain is literally built by the encounters. You'll hear from Dr. Meany that it ain't genes compared to environment. It's the two of them interacting. Now, I have a first degree in music and philosophy, and we had a great time arguing if it was genes or the environment, nature or nurture. Well, it was a good time, but it was a waste of time. Now, the other thing, relationships are key. But we live, you ask anybody and they'll say, oh, you know, I'm so stressed, there's so much stress going on. Now, stress gets a bad rap, but you here in Montreal have one of the greatest institutes looking at stress, and Dr. Sonia Lupien, who is a champion. Well, we know that there's good stress, like me being up here. For me, there's tolerable stress, so that's when stress gets buffered by relationships. My brother just now is very ill. And it's the fact that all of us as siblings and family can come together and support him that make that more tolerable. But the stress we worry about and the stress we can, in fact, in our relationships make a difference is the toxic stress that children live under. I think I want to emphasize that when I come and I see Dr. Julien, and go around with Diego and see what's happening in the Fondation, what I see is an intentionality of, through the building of relationship, that you are diminishing the stress in the lives of the family. You're not in the game to find it, fix it, make them better, but to go on the journey together. Why is it so important? Because when you do, and I saw young families coming into the clinic, they had a sense of belonging. That sense of belonging, we're finding out from many researchers, actually diminishes the toxic stress. It increases oxytocin, neutralizes cortisol. Now, there are some challenges. Let's not pretend about that. This is a very well-known study, Hart and Risley. So the brain is built through experience. We have the experience of how much language children hear, literally helping the brain cells, the neurons, make all of their connections up, and the more language children hear, the more language they develop. I want to talk about language, but I do not want to say that we have to focus most on language. I would rather say we have to focus on attachment, which I'll talk about again in a minute. So this is a very important study that was done by Hart and Risley. The numbers in the groups weren't very big. Like, there's low SES, so socioeconomic status, middle and high. Really big study. They looked at how many hours, how many words did children hear in their first early years. So I want you to imagine the principle here is that the more words you hear, the neurons, the brain cells get turned on, and as the repeated stimulus comes in, they get higher, stronger, more connections. So these little guys here, who would have heard maybe 13 million words. It sounds like a lot, but in fact, compared to the richer people with the high SES, there was a 30 million word gap. Famous paper came out. So the quality and the context of the environment is really very, very important. Now, you might say, okay, well then let's just get in and teach all of those people living in poverty how to talk to their kids. Well, guess what? You'd be wasting a heck of a lot of money, because many families living in poverty are doing great things with their kids. And some of those rich families, those kids aren't doing so great because the parents are both working and they have someone looking after the children, not talking to them. This is a parenting issue, not a poverty issue. But as you look at it, you see in the Hart and Risley study, it's not just a number of words that children were hearing, but also what they were hearing were different affirmations. So the number of affirmations that the kids who were living in poverty heard was 5, and they had double the negative. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. The kids living who are better off, they had 32 affirmations compared to only about 5 or 6 negative. So you see how the brain is being constructed. But very importantly, there are ways that we can approach this. Another study looked at just poor families living who get support from women and children dollars. And what they found was that in the poor family, there was just as great a range. Do not assume that you're living in poverty, that there's absence of parenting knowledge, expertise, and wisdom. It's relationships that count. The families in this study, some of the mums had only 60 words in an hour, but many of the mums had 1,200 words in an hour. What was the difference? Well, one of the big differences was the connection, the attachment. So attachment is what that little baby we saw with Dr. Zuckerman. That little baby was distressed, was very distressed when mum didn't respond, but then mum came in and the baby expected that. So when the baby was soothed by the mum, then the distress went down. Attachment has to do with the emotional connection when you're upset, distressed, or sick. This is the core feature that we need to be supporting our families develop. There's a very important body of work that looks at parental insightfulness. Are they able to put themselves in the shoes of their children? Do they have curiosity about why the children are not behaving well? We heard from Eric that is the behavior, and what they show us and what they say may be different. The studies show that if parents can be curious about their child's behavior, if they can put themselves in the shoes of their child, so when they're asked to tidy up and they kind of protest, the parents who say, oh, well, you know, he was having such a great time, that's why, is a very different relational attachment descriptor, and those children do well, compared to the children who the parent says, you know, he's just like his dad. He never does what I tell him to do, and he's just out to make me feel bad. Yeah, you see the difference in those two? What the studies have shown is that children exposed to equal amounts of violence, when the parent has this parent insightfulness, guess what? There's no pathology. I'm going to suggest that we need to be thinking of ourselves in the same, put ourselves in the shoes of the families. That in order for us to help these families, we need to know about their dreams. We need to know what is it that they long for their children, because that is where we start. We walk with them. The resilience they need, the resilience they develop, it develops not in a gene, but in the connections, the relationships that they build with you. We need to think about stress and walk in their shoes and imagine, be with them. Maya Angelou, a fantastic writer, she spoke about how people will remember you. And they won't remember you for what you said or for what you did, but for how you made them feel. Social pediatrics here, Dr. Julien, this is home for those of us who wholeheartedly and authentically want to be with people, and it's who we are and how we make them feel that is going to mobilize them towards the change that they dream and seek. Thank you very much for your great attention. Thank you.